Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is a martial artist, entrepreneur from Melbourne, Florida. She's a former owner of 2 companies and acquired commercial land for her business before exiting in 2021. She currently practices real estate and business acquisitions when not studying or sharing in her martial arts career. She's been studying and competing in martial arts for most of her life, and she'll be making her movie debut with many legends of martial arts very soon. Please welcome my guest today, Miss Morgan Frechette. How are you doing today, Morgan?
Oh, I'm doing so well, Brian. It's what a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad we're able to do this. And I know you said you've listened to a few episodes, so you kind of know how we kick things off, but I want to go back to the beginning. You know, what led to that first interest in martial arts? Where did that first spark come from, and what kind of kicked off your martial arts journey?
Oh, wow. What a deep question, Brian.
And take all the time you want to answer it. No time limit.
Well, I definitely have to flip the pages back several chapters because my fascination with martial arts began before I can remember at a very young age. And it's funny because I do deals now in career, right? I do real estate deals and business deals, but I will always reflect back and say that the most important deal of my life was the one that I negotiated with my mother at 12 years old to let me start karate lessons.
Nice.
So I was just fascinated with martial arts, karate-do especially, from a young age. And there was just something about seeing a student in that white uniform and that colored belt and being coached and the idea of the different levels and ranks that increase your understanding and ultimate mastery and what is beyond mastery, what is beyond the black belt. Something about that leveling up mindset just fascinated me so much. And I will say that for years as a child, I was not allowed to practice martial arts or watch martial arts or anything like that because my family felt like it was a little too manly. Yeah, they felt like it was, not the right sport or hobby for a young woman. And I did grow up with a big family, so the priority of the children as a whole was what we were allowed to do, not so much individual sports or hobbies all the time. So needless to say, I had to wait many years and really just fantasize about the opportunity for karate or martial arts. I think unlike a lot of people I have met or heard about, a lot of times their parents do just sign them up. And I've taught for years as well. And it was one of those things that if a child wants to do karate or taekwondo or MMA, then their parents just sign them up. Or maybe they know someone who can bring them to class and that sort of thing. But for me, I think because my desire for karate was so strong and it was suppressed, I would say that I was held back for many years.
Wow.
That when I was finally allowed to do it, I was like a horse at the gate that could not be stopped. I really allowed my mom to see the opportunity finally after years of begging. I said, Mom, I found a karate class. It's within 2 miles of the house. It is free. It's taught at a church. You like church? What better match? I even have a friend who has a hand-me-down uniform. There's no reason why I shouldn't be allowed to do this, Mom. If I can't get a ride, I can ride my bike. I will save up my money and buy a bike. I wanted karate so bad that I found no excuse for my mother to not let me do karate. And the last objective was my math grade. And I really put that one down. That card was, I promised to improve my math grade. And she said, you know what? I remember very vividly. She looked up at the ceiling and said, you know what? If you raise your math grade, I think we can let you do that.
Wow.
And from there, I knew my life would be changed forever because I had wanted this unlike anything I've ever wanted. And I have not wanted to stop. And it is through my blood. Karate and martial arts is my lifestyle.
I got to ask, how long did it take you to get the math grade up?
Uh, well, I really applied myself with my tutor, and it wasn't easy, but the math grades did improve. And I will say I always struggled with math, especially, but school in general. I really do prefer real life work, and I always knew that. So I will say my grades did not, they were never highly impressive until college. Then I enjoyed the work a little bit better. But college grades, yes, they were great, but math and, pre-graduation, no, I really struggled a lot because I love to work, and I did a lot with small business, just working on my own to earn money before graduating high school and even middle school. And I just knew early on that was my calling, that I would not be so much of a scholar, that I would earn my living one day by being an entrepreneur. So that's why I struggled, I think, is because I knew the other side that I was so excited about. That's
good, though. So that first school, then, what style was it? And just what do you remember about some of the first few classes?
Oh, my goodness. My first dojo that I was a part of, and I'm still very close to my sensei, is a style called Shorin-ryu Karate Do. Okay. And exactly, it is the Kobayashi style of Shorin-ryu. And my sensei is Sensei Roberto out of Virginia. I will be actually traveling to see him in July. I'm so excited to be with he and his school there. And the first things I remember about the class was that it looked absolutely challenging. My first class that I sat in on actually was a belt exam. It wasn't an actual class.
Oh, wow.
So as you know, Brian, these rank exams are, they're designed to scare students.
Yep.
And anyone watching may not decide to actually enroll and take lessons. But my father said, you have to watch a class before we commit. So that's what we watched. And I said, I want it. I want the hard push-ups and the sweating. And someone looked close to tears at the belt test. And I said that was what I wanted. Absolutely. So it was a little bit intimidating to some, but for me, that was the challenge that I was excited to accept.
And then once you actually started class, what was it once you got into it that made you want to keep going? Because I've talked to people before who tried it when they were younger and they were so excited going in, like, oh, I won this. And then after a few months, they got bored with it. So what was it about it that made you want to give it your all and just stick with it?
Well, I think I go back to that long-term fantasy that I grew up with of wanting something so much that I wasn't allowed to have. So once I was finally on that floor, and it was a carpet floor, Brian, it wasn't the nice mats and the mirrors and the air conditioning. No, it was the carpet on top of concrete in a commercial building and all of that. But that traditional hard style of training, that it really fed that long-term zeal that I had for a long time that had not been fulfilled up until that point. So, it's like a horse at the gate in a race. Once that gate is down, that horse has been itching to run. And I remember being that student and looking around me. And this is something I teach on all the time, is the idea of being coachable. Because I had waited so long, I was so hungry to learn as much as I can. So I think for a typical student, they may have been in a class to learn what is in that moment. But for me, I was truly there to learn everyone else's learning as well. So I remember, and I do this all the time, I teach on this, but listening to the instruction that others are receiving and making corrections, self-correct. Your coach's job should be an easy one. They should be able to say or make one correction, and then we run with it and improve 10 times more. So that's the nature and the mindset that I approached class with, was because I had desired it for so long that I was just such a sponge that I listened to the corrections others were making, and I would make them on myself before my instructor would be able to get to me. And then another thing is once your instructor makes that one correction, you make that correction and you keep it forever.
Yep.
That was the other implantation in my mind, was when my sensei tells me something, I want to correct it now, and I don't want them to have to tell me once more.
Nice. That's really impressive at that age to think about that. So that's good.
Thank you, sir.
And I tell you, I would have killed for carpet. My first 3 schools were all hardwood floors that shared with dance schools. So
wow.
my first one, when I was 10, it was a dance school above a police station. And that was when I started taking Tong Sudo. And it was, it was hardwood. I mean, I don't remember at that age falling, but I know my Shotokan school, that was also a hard floor when I was a teenager. I do remember taking a few falls, doing some spin kicks and stuff, and sweaty feet, and you slip, and it doesn't feel good to fall on a hardwood floor.
No.
So.
Oh no, I was just in Jupiter a couple of weeks ago with a friend who has a wonderful group out there, and it's the same idea. The wonderful hardwood, I guess maple, perhaps the basketball flooring is definitely, hard on the knees at times, but it builds character too.
Definitely. Now, how long did you stay at that school?
So I trained there from the age of 12 to 17 before my family relocated to Indiana, where I am from.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I was not able to continue there in Virginia or Maryland, Virginia area. And so that was the first 5 years of my training. And I want to say Sensei Roberto, his true expertise for karate is, I want to say, in practical application. Mm-hmm. So everything about my personal practical application now, I want to give that credit to my foundation in karate, because he truly took the practical street application from traditional karate techniques from Iha Sensei and instilled them from the first day of my class. That is what I was learning. Not so much forms and, beautiful technique. Mm-hmm. It was what works from a traditional perspective. So that was my first 5 years.
Wow. And then what belt did you get to before you left? And then did you get involved in competition when you were at that school?
So I achieved up to brown belt under Roberto Sensei and his amazing senior instructors who trained me. And at the time, it's so funny because I said, Dad, I asked my dad, I said, Dad, is there any way you can talk to my senseis about promoting me to black belt? Because I'm not allowed to ask. You know how it goes as a student. You're not allowed to ask about promotion. Yep. So I said, Dad, will you please talk to them for me and ask, is there any inkling of a hint that I can earn my black belt? Because I don't know if I'll be able to earn a black belt after I move. Well, you know how it goes. After you move out of state to a new school, you may have to start over. Yep. So I just didn't know what my future held with my karate. So it was cute. My father sat down with my instructors and Roberto Sensei, and they didn't give him a straight answer, of course. That running, she's very dedicated. She's a 1 in a million student. I'll never forget that. But they couldn't let me know for sure. And 6 months later, I moved. And that is when I got involved in competition as a brown belt, Brian. Okay. Is 17 years old, brown belt in Indiana. And to this day, I have a great relationship with, that is my second sensei is Donnie Michael in Kokomo, Indiana. And yes, he just threw me right in with his incredible school of huge, just wildly accomplished students, from the in-dojo students to the competitors. They are all just really wonderful technique students and tons of achievements. And it was just a great learning experience for me to be at the bottom of the totem pole of his competition team. And that was my first introduction.
So was that also Shorin-ryu, or did you start a whole new style?
So Sensei Donnie embraced me right away under Shorin-ryu Shorin-kan. Okay. So very closely similar for a transitioning student such as myself. It worked out great. He embraced me with everyone else, got me caught up to speed with everyone else at my level. And yes, it was a different branch of Shorin-ryu Shorin-kan. Okay.
And then you said you got involved in competition then. So what do you remember your first tournament?
I do. Okay. I earned third place in fighting. And I slipped in kata. I was performing a kata called Chinto. I'm not sure what style you do. Not
familiar. Many styles, but I've never done Shorin-ryu, so not familiar with their forms.
Sure. Well, yes, I slipped on the hard basketball floor, the court there. I wasn't accustomed to that, being new at competition, and didn't place in kata, but I do remember it was a good kata. So I was proud of at least performing for the first time and doing well. Just it was a learning experience as far as, being accustomed to a different flooring.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I think my first tournament too was on a hardwood floor. I've only done one tournament. I was never a competition person. I did one tournament in my life. And the only reason I did it is because I had an instructor that forced me to do it. And I did not want to. And I ended up getting my headgear kicked off.
Oh, wow.
And I remember hearing my mom gasp across the gym. And I was like 18 or 19 too. And I could still hear my mama. And my first thought was, don't come down. Stay in your seat. Mom. Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I say this to students now that I encounter is when I go to tournament these days, it's not so much to challenge others. And I always viewed it that way. Maybe it was because I did approach tournament later in life and later in my martial arts training. But I used to approach it as I'm there to challenge others and beat them. And then more lately, in the last few years, my mindset has been completely turned around, and it has been so fulfilling to know it's not about them. It's about me. This is an opportunity to be selfish, is go to these tournaments as an opportunity to challenge you and face your own fears and overcome your own personal goals that you're trying to achieve, whether you're looking at facing a fear of getting hit, a fear of falling in a match, a fear of stage fright in competing with a kata, a fear of dropping your weapon in kobudo. Whatever your fear is, you're there to overcome that, not somebody else. And if you happen to beat someone else, awesome, great job. But it shouldn't make us any different, I don't think. And that's what's been very fulfilling for me competing at a black belt level.
That's a great outlook. I love that.
Yeah, we can't be, we have to keep our blinders on and remember that we're there to get better, not be everyone else and be better.
Okay.
So everyone else.
How long did you stay at that school in Indiana then?
That was short-lived for being physically there. I continued to keep in touch and whatnot once I had to move again, actually. But I was only there for a little over a year.
Okay.
So very, very dedicated, fast-paced training with Sensei Donnie. I was there very frequently, competing every month. And then I graduated high school and went on to college, continued to train at, a very nice little group there at Indiana Wesleyan University. And I realized 2 years into my bachelor's degree that I really wanted to work and be in the workplace and not invest time and energy in a degree that I don't know is the right fit for me long term. So I put the brakes on my college degree, which included any training in Indiana, and I relocated to Florida from there. So at 19 years old, that's when I moved out of Florida. So I was only in Indiana training for a few years before it was time to work on the next chapter.
And did you get your black belt while you were in Indiana?
Yes. Sensei Donnie, I made a Facebook post recently, but I credit him to so much of my approach to martial arts, including my first black belt. So very, very gratefully, he really worked with me for a year straight. And he said, you know what, you deserve to be on the next promotion. So it's funny because I think about this all the time, but I actually failed much like middle school and elementary school. I didn't do well in school, and I did not pass most of my underbelt martial arts tests. And the reason wasn't because of the same reasons in actual school for me. The reasons were my senseis wanted me to feel the burn of just failing a test and coming back. Are you going to come back? Are you going to make the very slightest of corrections that we give you that we failed you for? It was a very tough traditional upbringing that I grew up with in my martial arts. So I wasn't used to passing tests. Most of my, from white belt through brown belt, most of my tests were second, third attempts because my senseis really wanted us to earn it and show it to ourselves. Prove it to ourselves that this was worth earning. So once it was time to earn my black belt, Sensei Donnie, I'm sure remembers it, but it was very hard for me to accept because of that upbringing. But he reassured me, you have earned this. And I think it's one of the greatest accomplishments for any martial arts student is to feel that they've arrived and earned that from their sensei.
So do you remember, I just thought of this question because I kind of had a similar experience. I think mine was probably half to maybe 3/4 of mine that I didn't pass the first time. But do you remember the longest between taking your first test, not passing, and then having to retest a second? How long before you actually got the belt? Like what was the longest in between testing times?
I almost forgot about that entire journey. Yes. That's the part
curious.
You don't remember.
Exactly. Well, I do, so but mine was 10 years. That's the only reason I remember. That's a whole nother story.
Incredible.
That's a whole nother story. That was my black belt test, actually. So.
Okay.
Long story.
No, I would say, I would say about probably 6 months, once you get up there.
And that's a long ways to wait. That's,
yeah.
Especially for colored belt, a lot of times that long, people won't come back. So even more power to you. That's awesome.
That's true.
So what do you remember about your black belt test?
It was very long. It was in Indianapolis at a venue that was pretty well fitted as this medieval night museum. So it made for this very eerie interesting testing area with a dimmed lighting approach on your black belt test. So it felt pretty intense, and it was for, I think, a whole day.
Okay.
Family came, grandparents came, so that was very special. But yeah.
So for Shorin-ryu, what is some of the stuff involved in the black belt test? I think that's one style I've never discussed a black belt test with someone about. I always ask that with different styles, just to people get an idea of, the different things you do because a lot of people think a black belt's a black belt, and obviously that they're not, and styles are different and tests are different. So what are some of the things you had to go through?
Well, I think another thing on that is every instructor is different. Yes. Every school owner is going to be completely different in how they operate because of their own background and expertise or experience. So the way my instructors, Sensei, out in Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, I'd say Maryland, Virginia, because I lived in Maryland and the school was in Virginia. But the way their test would be entirely different from another instructor's test versus the test that I give, that sort of thing. It really comes down to the melting pot of that instructor's preference along with their curriculum that they follow, right? Mm-hmm. So a belt test for myself in Indiana with Sensei Donnie, it was very, very long, went through every single kata, every single ippon or kumite drill, self-defense practical application, a lot of curriculum-based run through. Okay. Whereas I'm sure in Virginia, I was dreading that black belt test the same because it would have been probably, very, very equivalent, just different.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do you guys in Shorin-ryu, do you do board breaking as part of your test, or is that not something you have?
That's really up to the preference of the instructor, and It has not been my experience that I've come across a whole lot of that in Shorin-ryu.
Okay.
I have a couple of friends here and there that do focus on board breaking or brick breaking, concrete block breaking. They're scary, but that's not that common, to be honest with you. It might be slightly recreational. I know I used to do that all the time with my students. Every test we had board breaking, but it was more of a ceremonial, celebratory thing.
Okay. Cool.
Not so much of a challenge. Yeah.
So do you remember the first tournament that you won, like first place or grand champion, whatever they had at the tournaments you were at?
I think I remember a couple that were, I do think that I remember a couple that were pretty monumental for me. Okay. One being an all-female competition I attended as a brown belt, and that was in, I believe, Chicago. And I only go to really the hometown style tournaments. I don't do a whole lot of the big US Open. I don't really do that because it takes me away from my goal, right? My goal is I am there to get better as an individual. I'm not there to set myself up for failure for people who treat this, competitors who treat this like the Olympics. Right. I'm sorry. I don't train that way. I don't train that way. I honestly can't dedicate my career in that way. And I very much admire those who do. But for me, I really enjoy attending the hometown style tournaments led by local dojos and that sort of thing. So this one was led by a female instructor out in Chicago, and she was awesome. Her name is Master Kenyatta, and several students in that community were there. And I remember placing and then winning grand in kata. I probably didn't win my fight. I don't remember the fight, but I probably didn't win because Chicago and Detroit, all those areas have excellent fighting for karate. Two others was one in an AAU tournament. I remember beating a boy, and AAU is really fun to compete with because competing in kata side by side versus individualized. I'm up there as a teen brown belt. Again, I'm newer to tournament without very much experience, but I'm up there running kata and ran against the boys. I was the only female, and I ended up winning. So that was a fun accomplishment. And then the other one, I'll never forget this, out in Greenfield. I can't remember the city, but out in Kentucky. It was one of the best learning experiences for me in life and in martial arts, but mostly in life, is I went with my Sensei Donnie in Indiana. We traveled to Kentucky and went to Sensei Eubank's tournament out there. And I'll never forget, this young lady was really going hard in the ring. And I was a teen brown belt. I remember looking back at my sensei and giving him that look of, what do I do? this girl is really pushing me around. She was taller than me, stronger, and she was trying to push me to the ground, kick me to the ground. I look back at him. My eyes are wide. I'm like, I know I'm going to get hurt, Sensei. And the judge paused for a moment and gave her a warning. And I went back to my sensei, and he grabbed me by my face shield, Brian. And he said, listen, this girl is not here to win on you. She's here to hurt you.
Wow.
And from there, I lit up the match. I lit it up because he showed me the switch that I had in me.
That's cool.
And from there, I just gave it right back to her, even harder, even faster, even more creatively. And she threw her hands down and turned around and walked out of the ring.
Wow.
Mid-match.
That's awesome. That is cool.
I looked at my sensei. I said, what do I do? He said, they just stopped the match. She relinquished. And it was really neat because, like a lot of wonderful instructors, they give constructive criticism and they give praise and moderation. And when we got back home, Sensei, he told that story several times in the dojo. And that's when you know that you made your sensei proud.
Yep.
So that's one of those things. That is one of those moments for me in my training and competition that taught me that, man, it doesn't matter how bad you're getting beat down. Mm-hmm. It does not matter. If you want, you can turn on that switch and you can give it right back and you can come out on fire in the best way.
That's
alive.
Awesome. I'd love to see that. That's so cool.
It was honestly the best learning lesson.
And I've never seen an all female tournament. That's really cool. I'm if they'll still go on.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I don't know if they still go on. You know what, Brian? At this time, I would say that it would be very difficult to put something like that on.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing fewer, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I think that we're seeing fewer and fewer females participating at the higher level. Perhaps not so much in underbelt, but I venture to say that. I just think it's harder to get female participation, but I could be completely wrong.
I would agree to a point because
sure.
I run into the same thing. Just honestly, just trying to find female guests for my show sometimes. Honestly,
really?
I'd say out of 120 plus episodes, probably 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6, maybe. And they're out there. People like you doing it, that helps obviously, and inspiring younger generations. So that's good. But
right.
I'm curious. Well, did you ever compete in weapons?
I used to, yes.
Okay.
Quite a bit. I will say the reason why I have not focused on Kabuto or weapons as much in my career. One is I didn't have access to it until I was a brown belt training with Sensei Donnie, because we didn't train weapons in Maryland, Virginia area for my school. In Indiana, yes, Sensei Donnie and his school is phenomenal with weapons. Sensei Donnie is the best I've ever seen with Kabuto. Nice. He knows so many different competition katas for his students, and they all look incredible. But because I trained there for only a short time in the big scheme of everything, I didn't have that much training with weapons. So I've really only learned a couple of years worth for me in my training. And yes, I've competed some, but what I'll say on that is that Kabuto really is an investment like anything in martial arts. Mm-hmm. It's a study. To do it well, you really need to apply yourself and invest in the time. And when I do that for Kabuto, it does take me away from what I prefer to and need to master, continue training in, is my open-handed techniques and training. So I'm more than happy to play around with weapons and learn here and there, but I just make the choice not to invest too much. What's
your favorite? What's your go-to weapon?
The bow staff is
nice.
My probably most comfortable.
It's the most practical one, so I get that.
You know what? I might have to recant slightly. I think that the Eskrima is right up there too, because it is a short staff. Mm-hmm. I think that the momentum and the leverage that you get when you say practical, it really does make me think so much more of the Eskrima or the Kali stick.
Yeah. No, that makes sense too. So then you left Indiana, moved to Florida. What was next in your martial arts journey when you got to Florida? Was it staying with the same style, finding a new school, or did you change styles at any time? Or
when I moved to Florida, it was a grand transition for me into a new chapter. I was a brand new mother. And as I was saying earlier, I knew that finishing college for me at that time was not the right decision. I really wanted to enter the workforce and begin just working as an entrepreneur or in sales. So I did choose sales. And karate had to go to the wayside briefly. So I would train by myself. I would work out on my own, but I didn't have anyone to train yet. And what happened next is that my father passed away when I was 19.
Wow.
And we all have that somebody in our lives who is that cheerleader, that person that we think of when you think of who is your motivation, who is the biggest cheerleader. And for me, that was my father who inspired me to that level. And when I lost my father very unexpectedly, I really felt several different fires of passion for me die. And I thought that I was done training for about a year.
Wow.
I really felt like that perhaps I only did it for him. That was a big question mark for me for a while. And I knew that in time I needed to get back to my training because you just spend too much of your life to not continue. So what I did was I found a wonderful group, Sensei Des, out in Cocoa Beach. And I said, I don't think I'm ready to completely jump in, but I would like to watch your class. I will be honest with you. I just lost my father and I'm really not in the position to commit completely back to my karate. And I watched a class and I said, okay, this is a great group, good friends I can make here. And Sensei Des persisted, though. He gave me every reason to come back. He said, hey, don't wash this away. You should come back. I know that it's a hard time for you just losing your father, but you can't just, really continue with your martial arts. And it took everything in me to answer his phone calls, to be honest, because I just really wasn't in the emotional place yet to revisit my karate. And then one day he gave me another call and I said, you know what, Sensei Des, I really appreciate that, but childcare is expensive. I don't have a reliable babysitter. And he said a couple of words that changed my life. He said, bring her with you.
Yep.
And I knew from that moment that Sensei Des had me. And I use that all the time now. And now in my work, I do deals and I put deals together. And that is all about overcoming objections. Always finding a solution to an issue. There's always a way. There's always a better way. There's never a closed door. Just kick another one open.
Yep.
There's always a way to get what we want or need to do done. And that's exactly what Sensei Des helped me do, is he helped me overcome every single objection. And one being that I had an 18-month-old daughter.
Wow.
So there I did. I went on eBay at the time. eBay probably was the thing, and ordered her the smallest gi that you can buy. And I brought my daughter to Cocoa Beach Karate for a year, and she did the sit-ups. She did class with me, and
that's awesome.
I said, yeah, this is the way that I was able to salvage my fire back. And to this day, I'm great friends with Sensei Des and his group. They are just a wonderful light in our community, and he has a huge heart for philanthropy through karate, which I adore. I am in full agreement with him on that. We're going to inspire a huge group of camp kids next week. I'm really excited about. I help him do that every year. So thanks to Sensei Des, and I preach this to his class whenever he lets me go and preach to his students. Mm-hmm. I preach that, one impact you think is small for someone could change the lives of so many more than you know. And because Sensei Des helped me reel myself back into my karate, I have gone on to teach several people, hundreds of people in their karate, and help others in karate and inspire others that I might not have had he not helped me get back on track with my martial arts.
Wow. That is so cool.
Thank you. Now, what happens from there is really the birth of the rest of my journey and more of my now, where I am now and what I'm doing now. I have
really quick before we get to that, because I know you were just talking about teaching. When was the first time you taught? Was it at your first school in Virginia? Was it in Indiana? When did teaching become something you were even interested in at all?
That's so funny. We must be pretty like-minded, because that's exactly, I was transitioning exactly
nice.
Into that.
Perfect.
Exactly. Okay. So from there, about a year in training and spending time with Cocoa Beach Karate as friends, I was really involved in nonprofit work at the time as a guardian ad litem, which is a court-appointed child advocate and for children in foster care. And I was on the board of Children's Home Society, and I was working with teen girls who were in foster care. And at the time, I had these young girls who were like, Miss Morgan, teach us karate. And I knew that now that I was back on track with my karate, I knew it was time to go ahead and take myself into a new chapter with my karate. So I let Sensei Des know, and how grateful I was that he embraced me with his group. You know, as friends, and like we are today, I would become another dojo in the community. And what I did next was I looked for opportunities to teach. I was looking for space in the schools. I was looking for a church that had available space or a community center, and nobody wanted me.
Wow.
And meanwhile, it was too far away from Sensei Dez's, or else I would have just referred everyone to Sensei Dez's. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it was too far. We're talking 30 minutes into almost West Melbourne, and he's over by the beach. So I knew, and where I lived too was about 35 minutes away. I knew that I needed to bring my Shorin-ryu in self-defense a little bit closer mainland. So as friends, I let him know that I had a mission. I can see that I'm being called to teach in the community. I just don't know what that looks like yet. So I was hunting very hard for a space. I just wanted to teach for free, because at that time I was in college as well. I was finishing my second half of my bachelor's degree, and I just wanted to pursue this as a side situation that I do for the community for free or low cost, and teach my children in foster care, give them that additional outlet with me. And nobody wanted me, Brian.
Wow, that's crazy.
I don't know what it was. Maybe they thought that I was too young or whatnot. I don't know what it was, but I realized that the only way I was going to be able to make this happen was if I started a business, which I knew I could do. Mm-hmm. And that is where I combined my entrepreneurial passion and skills in order to make this dojo. So my thought was to rent space and form a dojo that I taught at. However, I caught a lead from someone whose child attended a school. They said, this school is being abandoned. The owner just literally walked away without any warning. He sold a bunch of gear to the students and then just left for a job.
Wow.
So I said, And I spoke with the landlord. I spoke with the wife of that school owner, and I bought the business. And it allowed them to leave all of the gear there, all of the mats, the mirrors that were up. So I had a little bit of a boost, but I had no students because the students were all so upset that they left, and the former owners were not willing to share their roster with me. So
Wow.
I was starting from scratch, and I was starting with a negative reputation already in the community. I kept the name of the school.
Oh, okay.
But I did really brand that it was under new ownership. I pushed that very strongly. And from there, birthed that school.
Was that Suntree? Was that one?
That's correct.
Okay.
That was Suntree Martial Arts.
So why did you decide to keep the name? Was there a specific reasoning behind it, or?
Well, one is I'm very awful with multiple options. Don't put me in the grocery store or in a closet with a lot of options. Honestly, if I could wear the same outfit every day, just like a karate uniform, I like consistency. I don't like a lot of options to pick from. So even my last business, I literally asked my business coach to pick the name of my business.
Wow.
And she did, and I ran with it.
Okay.
But, I think with multiple options, for me, it was a more powerful strike for me in a good way to say under new ownership, coming in, trying to give it not just a facelift from a visual standpoint, but from a communal standpoint. The community would know that I wanted that. I wanted them to know that this business that was there was under a new individual that would change things.
Okay. So did any of the former students find their way back there?
Fortunately, I believe 3.
Okay.
3 did. Yes. I'm very grateful that they did. But first and foremost, like any business, and I knew that this had to be run like a business if it was going to be successful. And I said, we need to try to fill this up with as many students that we can touch as possible. Let's do community events. Let's go to community events. Let's have them here. Let's go to them, and let's get the word out and show them what Century Martial is now. And we started first was sponsoring children in foster care. Okay. We had several children in foster care at first. And things change, unfortunately, with children in foster care where they can't stay very long.
Right.
But to bring martial arts to the student is something that I'm very passionate about. It's not me standing on a deck telling the students what a technique should look like. I look at the student and I show them how to get there. And I am very passionate about that because that's why my slogan was where every student matters. It's not about us bringing students to our karate. It's about us showing them how to get there. And I think all too often, students, they feel badly about where they're not, or, instructors at times, sometimes we feel like, our students should be this way or that way. But in fact, a lot of times a student really needs inspired on how to get there.
Yep.
A part of my approach to this school and my teaching style was an approach of empathy, because growing up, we still have a brother who has severe autism. And that was one of my first jobs as a child, was working along the adults, along the actual therapists. I was one of the therapists. I was also his special needs therapy dog handler and therapeutic horseback riding instructor. I did these different roles of therapy for my brother, along with the actual therapists. And that early education for me really cultivated a sense of being able to look into a student from more of a physical stance, but also an emotional stance, and see where they are emotionally, and me have a vision of where they can be. And I know how to bridge that gap. And it's because of, for me, it was an early education on working with the special needs community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really special angle that I decided to run with our school. Was I taught almost every single class for the first 3 years. I was there every day and almost every weekend. And I just wanted to really master that for the students, is a completely different teaching style. And another thing is life coaching. So hand in hand was an empathetic stance toward martial arts combined with excellence and life coaching. So we would bring in concepts of how to position our mindset like a martial artist and apply it to outside of the dojo, off of the mat, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I, when you're talking about that, my traditional Taekwondo instructor that I still train with all these years later, he actually does a special needs class. Fortunately, my schedule doesn't allow me to help with it as often as I'd like, but I know the many times I did, that's so fun and so empowering, helping those kids. And I remember the first time I got to watch one of them get his black belt. And, normally, a black belt test, you get your black belt, you shake your instructor's hand. That's all, you're respectful, yes. You're respectful. And this young man got his black belt and he let out the loudest whoop and started pumping his fist. And I was looking over at my instructor waiting for him to give him push-ups, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And I was like,
I love it.
That was so cool. Yeah. It was so awesome. But
to add to that, I was actually at the beach with my daughter not too long before I decided to start teaching. And just like you're saying, I noticed a child with Down syndrome. It was funny because I was actually on the beach watching my daughter play out in the waves. And I see from a distance, I see this little girl take this cup of water and splash it on top of my daughter's head pretty excitedly. And I said, oh, that looks like it could have been a little upsetting. Mm-hmm. So I walk out there. The other little girl's mother's walking out there as well. And as I got closer, I realized that the little girl had Down syndrome. And the mother, of course, felt really bad. And she said, I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand completely. And I know that she didn't mean any harm. I said, I completely understand. My daughter's completely fine and absolutely no problem at all. I'm glad that they're having a good time. And we just got to talking, and she learned that I trained martial arts for most of my life, and I'm interested in teaching again. And what she said next really split my heart open. She said, I've been wanting to get my daughter into martial arts, but I can't find an instructor who will take her.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, again, because of my background in the special needs arena, I can look at a child right away and know if I can help them or not. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and I said to myself, and I think about this often, I remember thinking, I would love to teach this girl. I know how I can help her. So it really showed me that unfortunately not every student is getting helped
right
the way that they could be. So again, I wrote the slogan where every student matters. And like you're saying, the first class that I opened was our special forces class. And our first student was a young student with Down syndrome. That was really incredible. But that was the first. I knew that the rest would come, Brian, like anything in organizational management or business. You know what will work, and you know what needs more focus than usual because it's not as common. Mm-hmm. So this group of classes, basically the special forces, it was a special needs class.
I love that name too. That's a cool name for a class. I love that.
I wish I could take the credit for that. I really do. But someone else, it was someone on the Facebook page, some group, he suggested it and I loved it. So again, I wish I could take that credit, but
that's cool though. Yeah, but you ran with it. You got to take credit for seeing that it was a great idea. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, we ended up having another student with Down syndrome and one with autism. And actually, so we had four total students, 2 with autism, 2 with Down syndrome in that class. And they were monumental for us. They tested alongside of every other typically capable student. Mm-hmm. We did events with the special needs community with these students representing. So they were very included. And that's something I think is really important.
That's great. I love it. And how long were you at that location? How long did you stay at that spot?
So I had that school for 5 years.
Okay.
My vision for that school was to salvage an unfortunate situation, mm-hmm. make it great. And then my vision was to have other senior students run the school and I would stay involved. Unfortunately, the way things panned out, the new ownership just really wanted to brand it as their second location. So they do have the school in its entirety now. And I'm very, very proud of each student that was able to go through my programs.
Did you then move to a new location and continue teaching or take a different path at that time?
So for me, at least, that school was quite the operation. Mm-hmm. We had over 100 on the roster in a quick time. And then next door, I built a daycare by need. I'm not really one to follow the dream. I don't even know what my dream is. I've never known what my dream is. I follow the opportunity other than karate. I will take that back. Yeah. All I've known is I love karate and I love entrepreneurship. I don't follow the dream. I follow the opportunity and I follow the need. So 2 years into our traditional karate programs, I realized that there was an underserved market here for after school programs, meaning the programs that are driving children from school back to karate mm-hmm. and facilitating them for the rest of the day with karate classes, tutoring, and extracurricular activities, summer camps as well. So there was not enough of that in our community. And I could tell we had a demand for that in our own student body. So we began renting space next door. And from there, I had to secure another space for our after school program. And by the time we were done, we had 69 children. So we had close to 200 in total. And we were really at full capacity on both sides. And from a business standpoint, I had to take off my Sensei hat and look at it from another side of things and say, do I want to take this business to the next level? Do my students want to go to that next level? So I had a decision to make, and it was my time to make the decision. Do we want to go to the next level, or do I want new ownership to come in and now Morgan continue on with what Morgan does, which is I follow the opportunity, and I, just like I did with the school, I salvaged the school and brought it to where it needed to be, to its fullest potential with me. I brought it to as far as I could get it, and I built the daycare next door, etc. I brought it to where as far as I could go. And now it was that pivotal decision time. Do I continue and scale from here? Or is it okay, exit time, and now Morgan does what Morgan needs to do? Because of the nature of those two businesses, which, are very family oriented and heartfelt, it was an immense toggle for me because I also love entrepreneurship. I love business. Right. So I know how to salvage a school. I know how to scale a school. I know what works and won't work. I know what the market is looking for in these two businesses. However, I also have a daughter myself. And it was between the wearing the business hat and then the Sensei hat and the mom hat, I really felt contention personally. And I knew that I would personally be much happier allowing this business to flourish under new ownership. It was my turn. I did my best that I could with it. I had a great run. Okay, now it's my daughter's turn, and it's my turn to move on to new endeavors. So I'm extremely happy with the 5 years that we had. And I'm very, very, very proud of each student and family that joined me in that journey.
That's awesome. So think back then to your very first day teaching to now. What do you think changed the most about your teaching style over those years?
Oh my goodness. I just had this conversation today about teaching one's craft before we feel ready to do so, right? That's exactly the position I found myself in when my children in foster care were saying, Miss Morgan, teach us karate. I didn't know how to teach. I had never actually had the opportunity to teach at all in my former dojos and such that I belonged to. And even later on, I was promoted to my third degree now in one style and third degree in another. But that's been after a lot of teaching time. I had never taught as a first degree black belt before that. And my first day of teaching these children, I remember getting this group of third graders, Brian, and they were just looking up at me so cute. I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do with these guys? I don't know what to do with you kids. And I remember instantly pivoting because I had actually expected for that school to fill up with adults because it's in a child-oriented area, definitely, but it also has an older community as well. And I only had experience with other colleagues in karate who were older. I really wasn't around a lot of kids. I was always the youngest, if that made sense, and training with older men. And so for me, I didn't put my business hat on for that. I guess I missed that lesson in the moment. And I expected to have adult students. What surprised me to death was I had only children. So overnight, I had to unwind my vision for the school and cater to my market. What was my market showing me I needed to do? It was become a resource for children, basically, for karate. So instantly I changed my plans for teaching and I said, you know what? I need to go back to what I've done my whole life almost is I've been the oldest of 6 kids and I know how to play with young kids and be a therapist for a child and with autism. So immediately you just get down to earth with these kids and you become like a child. And it was play. It was fun. It was laughing. It was sweet with a taste of firmness and discipline and seriousness and then a taste of fun. And I remember just having the best time in the world with these students. And I wasn't expecting it because I had never taught before. But going back to, for me, I don't follow the dream, right?
Right.
My thought was I was going to teach adults. No, I'm going to teach whoever comes through these doors. And I'm going to bring my karate to them. I'm not going to bring them to me, right? So I had to calibrate myself instantly to go from the mindset of teaching an adult. No, I will be teaching a child. Okay, now this class is going to be full of 3 and 4-year-olds. I need to know now how to teach my 3 and 4. Okay, now this class has children with special needs. I will teach them I will teach them from that standpoint. Okay, now I have seniors. I'm teaching a private lesson with a very limited elderly person. I need to know how to teach. So you instantly just calibrate according to the need, not so much the dream, not how I want to teach. It's how do they need taught?
Right.
So I'm thankful for that upbringing. Yes. Thank you. I'm so thankful for that upbringing and helping my brother growing up. It really taught me how to be adaptive on the fly, creative on the fly, to what works and what will not work with any certain individual student or customer too. It's at the end of the day, these students, we just have to realize that a student is a customer, right? If a dojo is if it's going to be somewhat successful in what it's trying to accomplish, then we have to remember that we are still catering to the needs of a student. It's just a mindset we have to accept. So
I love it. Great answer. All right. So we definitely got to talk about this. I know this is how I originally found out about you. I saw your post. There's a movie coming out that's going to be starting production this fall with some actually three former guests of my show. Cynthia Rothrock, Richard Norton, and Olivia Gruner are all going to be in this show. And it's a Cynthia Rothrock project. So talk a little bit about Black Creek and how you got involved with this.
Oh my goodness.
It's exciting.
Sure. I'm certain that you can hear the grin through the phone.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So what's so funny is I don't know if I believe in manifestation. I really don't know if I do or not. I'll be 100% honest. I know a lot of people do, a lot of people don't, but a lot of times for me, when I start to believe things or think about things, they just naturally happen for me. I don't know what it is, but for a couple of years, I have been contemplating trying to break into film a little bit, just because I'm such a level up person. I always, or level out. I want to always try to challenge myself in new ways. And one way is through martial arts. And I already had it in the back of my mind that I would be open to that. And then secondly, Cynthia Rothrock had been on my mind for many months because she's a relationship that anyone would be so fortunate to somewhat try to get close to, if at all remotely possible. She's just one of those just legendary figures that you can tell has a way about how they go that is, it's unseen. It's not common. Just the example of doing something like Black Creek, she's opening her life and her efforts up to the public, right? How many legendary figures like Cynthia are willing and able to pull that off? Again, back to willing, she's allowing fans and the public to be a part of something so great. What an opportunity. I can't believe someone as incredible, accomplished, and talented as she is allowing us the opportunity to be a part of this if we so desire.
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool.
So it's so funny because I was on Facebook, and I tend to be a little bit low key for the most part on some things. So I would watch Cynthia from a distance, and I remember thinking, man, I would love to try to get involved with her somehow. Maybe I can start traveling and going to every seminar she hosts, and I'll join her online membership where I can be a part of her chats. I was just working on myself as far as how I could start building that connection slightly with Cynthia without being an overstepping figure, right? I'm not going to go in and expect that I can just have access to Cynthia by any means. That's not what I mean. But I was already thinking, how can I start to get on Cynthia's radar? To be completely honest, she's just one of those individuals that I would love to know in my lifetime I had been able to work with or get someone close to. And boom, Miss Cynthia comes out with her opportunity. And I didn't think for half a second. I knew that I wanted to step forward and jump on that. And what's so much fun is from there, I was only planning on being a part of a fight scene. And I think just through some collaborations and emails back and forth, they ended up asking if I would be interested in joining the cast. So I'm really excited about the opportunity now that it's more than what I was planning on. And I was planning on trying to be low key about being on the fight scene and anything like that. But now it's just like I'm jumping in without any acting experience at all. Now I'm working on it. And to be close to the legendary figures that you just mentioned, it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm honored and so excited.
I'm so excited too. I can't wait to see the movie. And I'm trying to get a few more of them on the show because I like Don Wilson. I've been trying to get on the show for a while, and he said yes. I'm just trying to schedule him, and I've been trying to get Billy Blanks, who's also in the movie. And so yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
I mean, I guarantee you're gonna have a blast, and it's gonna be so cool. And
Thank you.
hopefully they can get it in theaters, not just streaming. I know she wants to try to. And
that would be incredible.
Yeah,
that would be incredible. Knowing Cynthia, and I can't believe I can call her Cynthia. I've never called her Cynthia, but I guess that's what everyone calls her. But knowing her, she can do anything. We're seeing it with this own production, left and right. She keeps coming out with new things that this movie is accomplishing that are just undeniably successful that I don't think most people would be able to pull off.
Yeah.
She is one of those just never ending, unlimited. You can tell she has no limits to what that woman can do. And I admire her so much for it.
And she's breaking records with crowdsourcing and stuff and funding.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So yeah, it's going to be fun, and I hope it's going to be a major success. So
yes, I know it will. And you can just tell, I mean, something that truly attracted me to working with Cynthia from the beginning is I really, truly wanted to be a part of anything that she does. You can tell she approaches her work from the most humble, down-to-earth stance.
Yep.
And what you see in her films, as you know, Brian, is what you get. She looks like such a sweetheart. Even when she's kicking butt, you know that is a beautiful soul.
Yes.
That is a wonderful person in that video, in that film. And that is exactly Cynthia behind the scenes of those films.
I still remember talk about the smile on your face when she responded and said, yes, she'd do my podcast. I was smiling for like 2 days. And then she sends me a friend request on Facebook. I'm like, wow.
Aww.
Yeah. And it was just such a fun interview. And she was just a down to earth and super cool person. And yeah, so I definitely get that.
So you've seen it too. I know. My first interaction with her, I was so professional and formal, and I was sending her emails from my corporate email, and I realized how sweet and down to earth she is that I just threw it all away and like, okay.
Yep.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I'll hopefully get, like I said, I'll hopefully have more people on that are involved in that, talking about it and promote the heck out of it. And
Absolutely.
And I can't, if my son wasn't in college, I actually thought about helping him do it so he could, because my son's going to school for acting. And he did martial arts for a long time when he was younger. And I thought, like, oh man, if I could get him involved, but that's right during school time when they're filming, and it would have been a little difficult to work around. So maybe next time.
That's fine. Yeah, for the sequel.
Yeah, definitely.
Sequel,
yeah, exactly. So, and I have to ask you mentioned having a daughter. So have you gotten your daughter involved in martial arts?
Yeah, it started out so much fun where she was really a part of, from both the martial arts standpoint and then business startup, right? We're building things, we're painting things, we're filling up water jugs, we're doing all of this to start this dojo. And my daughter Kylie, she was so involved at a young age. She was helping me with tasks and making up her own katas. It was really cute. However, as she got a little bit older and realized the pressure that I think children definitely have when their parents are the instructor, it became harder on both of us. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where she would participate, but it was a little, I think it's just a bit of a challenge when it's mom on the deck or when it's your own daughter. You try to make them as comfortable as possible, but they always have that pressure that they have to be like mom. And I think it's really not fair for her. But I didn't have that many instructors. I had one or two other amazing instructors. So I would try to put her in those classes for the most part. Yep. But what I realized later on, after we did move on, is picking a different style on its own for my daughter was the way to go. Okay. So that is the rule in our 2-person family between she and I. She has to do a ball sport, or really a sport, and she has to do a martial art and stick to her martial art. Okay. So she plays soccer. She also sticks to BJJ, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Nice. And it works out great because she comes with me when I train Muay Thai. I train with Professor Israel Gomez out of Killer Bees here in Melbourne. He's a phenomenal coach. He is the go-to around here for Muay Thai and BJJ and kickboxing. So she attends with me, and she has her own coach. I have mine, and we have our own peers in our classes, and it just relieves her of the pressure of needing to be like me, especially when I don't train. I actually don't train BJJ. So she feels like she can beat me at BJJ, which I love.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's her own little identity. It's great.
Cool. So I'm curious then, what you talked a little about BJJ and kickboxing and stuff, or what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC, and are you a fan of that?
I am not great at following any one activity, sport, anything. So I don't know names. I do love watching, however. Okay. I don't follow anyone, but I do love watching the fights and admiring technique. I study movement. Nice. But I can't say I'm a huge fan or follower, but if it's on TV, I will watch it and fall asleep to it, that sort of thing. But as far as my view on UFC, I think it's great. It's very entertaining. It's very real. It's actually something I enjoy teaching on a traditional standpoint. Is we have to understand that our traditional martial arts, it won't be what saves us. It is the mindset of a fighter. Mm-hmm. It's not the mindset of a traditional karateka. It is the mindset of a fighter. So when you see a UFC or a Muay Thai fighter, you can tell that they have a calmness about them, and then the most fierce striking and kicking. And I think the contrast for traditional martial arts is that in traditional martial arts, such as karate do or taekwondo, we are a very polite style, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want to fight. We would rather walk away than fight. Yes. So we need to understand that there is a switch, just like I mentioned earlier with me in that ring against that girl that wanted to hurt me. in a karate match. We need to understand the other side of things and understand how to fight like they do as well. So it's funny you're bringing up UFC, but my additional training is 8 years of Krav Maga.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that does really, really cultivate a fighter out
Yes.
of the most timid of students. And that used to be me. I used to want to be the passive, I don't want to fight, the polite, yes, sir. And that really got me into trouble later on as a young adult. And I realized how much I needed that fighting spirit, that survivalist mentality of that UFC fighter or that Krav Maga student.
That's awesome. Cool. So in all your years of martial arts, is there one philosophy you've learned that stands out? It rises to the top of your list. You keep coming back to it.
Kaizen.
Nice. Okay.
Kaizen. Are you familiar with Kaizen, Brian?
I know the term. I actually had a guest that owns the Kaizen dojo in Los Angeles. So
I love it. I love it. So Kaizen, it literally translates to the continual pursuit of change for the better. And I named my daughter Kylie after the word Kaizen.
Nice. Okay.
Because as you're asking, it is something that I continually gravitate towards. And why it was because, like I said earlier, that Kaizen and that approach of listening to other instructions that might not apply to me, but taking that and applying it. Because your instructor will tell others instructions, but you can let those instructions completely pass you, or you can internalize them to find a way to change for the better. And that is how I was able to do that, is through Kaizen. So you listen to everything around you and apply it to you, even if they're not meaning for it to be for you. You take it anyway and find a way to become better from it. So with that Kaizen mindset, you can improve quickly. You can improve instantly. You can improve forever if you always have that mindset of always seeking change for the better. And I find that in the green belt level, the intermediate level, is we think that we're done. Okay, now we're just rotting, waiting for our black belt test, right?
Yep.
It's hard to teach the intermediate students sometimes or the brown belt level, because they feel like they've already achieved so much. And I understand they've been training for a long time for them. But we have to remember that continual pursuit of change says, what else? What else? Like a dog trying to dig for their ball in the yard. What else is there that I can find? What else is there that I can internalize and grow from? And that is how we, I believe, just continually improve, become masters at our craft, continue branching out, and survive. I think Kaizen and survival have a huge collaboration potential. Because if you're in a survival situation where you have no choice, you have to figure it out, then you'll never quit. You'll never fail because you have Kaizen, that continual search of change for the better. You can be backed into a corner. That's how you keep fighting, is because you refuse to not change, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I love it. That's a great answer. All right.
No plateau zone.
Nice. Okay. All right. I have a few fun questions to wrap it up here. 3, 4, 5 names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
So my Mount Rushmore of martial artists would definitely be the ones who have impacted me. One is he's not a martial artist, but he's a survivalist of many things. And that would be my father.
Nice.
Next, obviously, would be Cynthia Rothrock.
Yep. Very cool.
The female legendary monument in my upbringing, and now is such an empowering female that is unstoppable. After decades and decades and several dozen movies, 70 plus movies, she is still on fire and inspiring, and the most humble, helpful one of them that I've ever met. So that's definitely Cynthia Rothrock. The others would be my coaches or instructors. So first would be my sensei out in Virginia, Sensei Roberto of Shorin-ryu. Second is my sensei Donnie Michael out of Kokomo, Indiana, of Shorin-ryu Karate-do. And then the others would be my other coaches more recently one is Dustin Koppel, who honored me with my rank in Krav Maga and trained me.
Nice.
And then my Muay Thai coach is Professor Israel Gomez out of Killer Beast. And then someone who I don't really speak of very much, but really changed my life very much is Cameron Shane. He has a truly impactful style of martial arts yoga that I was very honored to train with for 5 days in a teacher training in Miami. Now he's out of Big Sky, Montana with his wife, Milane. And the style is called Budokan Yoga. And it's the most incredible practice aside from martial arts I've ever done. It's the combination of explosive yoga that is really from a martial arts perspective. So it combines that warrior with the yogi, and we both need each other. The yogi needs to know how to fight, right? Yep. The warrior needs to know how to relax like the yogi. So it really bridges that gap, and it provides this primary series, which is like a huge kata, like a 3-minute kata. It's a massive kata. So I love to practice that. And he is a high ranking practitioner on karate as well as BJJ. So I would put him on my Mount Rushmore of martial arts as well. And the last I have to give honor to is Sensei Des out of Cocoa Beach Karate. If it weren't for him, I don't know if I would have returned to my martial arts, to be honest with you.
Okay. That's cool. That's a great Mount Rushmore. I love it. All right. Do you have a favorite martial arts book?
Man, Brian, this is hard.
It's a good ones out there. So
I'm so sorry, but I do read other books, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay. And that's fine. I've had many guests not have an answer for that. So don't feel bad. And same with this next question. Many guests don't have an answer for this one, but do you have a favorite martial arts video game?
I feel like I'm letting you down today. I'm so sorry. I don't play video games either.
Okay. No worries.
Oh, I wish I was more fun. My goodness.
It's all
wow. I'm such a bum.
It's okay. No worries.
I don't know the name of this one game growing up. It's the game with the... I'm not even going to describe it.
No.
It was one of the famous games with the different characters, and I definitely don't know the answer.
So,
all right, I give up.
So probably like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or one of those games maybe. But
I think it may have been Street Fighter.
Okay.
The one that says fight.
Yeah. Good game, horrible movie. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme was really bad. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. I'll be sure not to have that one.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show? You got one for that? It can be an old school one. It can be a current one.
Oh man. I love Karate Combat. Do you remember that show that they had years ago that highlighted the various styles? It was called Human Weapon.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, I forgot about yes.
I completely forgot about that, but I was watching YouTube reels on that not too long ago. I love that one.
What a great show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to write that down because I'm going to go back and watch episodes for possible future guests. So that's a good idea.
I love that.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Great strategy.
How about a favorite martial arts movie? You can't pick Black Creek because it hasn't been made yet. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, lately I have obviously been trying to study Cynthia Rothrock's movies. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
I'm really digging Sworn to Justice right now.
Okay.
That is just the iconic fight scenes in that movie. She does, as always, just the most incredible job. The spinning kicks in that video, I'm definitely eating up studying the technique in that movie.
Very cool.
So I would say Sworn to Justice is at the top of my list. My daughter would smack me and say, no, it's Lady Dragon, Mom. That's
Nice.
her favorite.
Okay. Very cool. No, and I think you're actually the first person to pick Sworn to Justice. So that's good. Very good.
Really? Oh.
All right. So this final question, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, just a favorite movie fight scene. And I've had people go anywhere from like Star Wars and Marvel to The Princess Bride to, John Wick and anything in between. So anything goes.
I have to take it to a serious place all the time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I have to say the scene from J-Lo's, what is that movie? It's the one where her husband is a terror. Do you know
was it called Enough? Was that the one?
Enough. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. So, I love anything women empowerment or survival, anything like that with women and relationships definitely hits my heartstrings. And I love that scene where she was in a very toxic relationship that turned abusive, and she just learned how to train and fight back for her life, despite how fearful she appeared in that video. She really showcased what it was like to be in a situation like that and what you can do about it and how you can break free and succeed your attacker, even if it's someone you trust and you like a spouse. Yep. And she sure did that in that movie. So I think that fight scene in Enough is one that definitely stood out years ago, and it stands out to me now.
And that's another one no one's picked yet, so I like it. That's good. Hey, a lot of people go standard, and a lot of people pick ones that everyone does, and I like when we get a new one, so that's good.
Oh, well, good. You know, the problem is that I really don't watch enough movies. I think I like to read, but I haven't read as many martial arts books as I should have.
Who's your favorite author? Just curious. Before I started this podcast, I was a massive reader. I used to read a book a week. And once I started the podcast, I just no free time. So I'm just curious who your favorite author is.
My favorite author would be Robert Greene. He writes The 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, okay.
Which is not my favorite book of his. Mm-hmm. I really like War, where he teaches the mindset of war from actual historic lessons in war. Cool. Coming from a very, very militaristic family, almost all of my uncles and aunts have served, including both my parents and both my grandfathers. Then that book really, nice. it stood out to me. But Robert Greene's a phenomenal author. So is business coach JT Fox. He has an incredible book called The Millionaire Underdog. And it's not so much about being a millionaire as it is just that underdog mentality, just like we have in martial arts, where you can come from nothing and be a nobody. And you can find absolute wild success if you just really go for it, like we know in martial arts. Mm-hmm. So Millionaire Underdog by JT Fox, that's another really great one. Nice. I enjoy. I'm going to
have to add those to my list. So, well, Morgan, before I let you go, anything maybe that I forgot to ask you or you want to make sure we get out there before we wrap it up?
Oh, if anyone, thank you. If anyone's in Florida or would like to travel to Florida, I have not actually mentioned this yet, but I will be hosting a tournament here in February. So, Brian, I'm not sure. Where did you say you're located again?
I'm in Minnesota. So it's
Minnesota? Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Hey, I like going places warm in the winter, so especially in Minnesota. So.
Oh, no, I'm definitely kidding. But I really enjoy putting on these tournaments. This is my third one I've done in the last 7 years, I think. And this one is solely for charity. I've enjoyed being a part of Nana's House Children's Home here in the area. It's 100% community funded through our local residents and business owners and donors. So events being held like this one are the way that one way that the children's home stays funded and can pay for their needs. So we'll be doing this one on February 17th here in Vieira. And I am partnering with an incredible group in South Florida called the Martial Arts Foundation. And they're very supportive of my work. And I'm very grateful for their relationship. So they're coming up here to Vieira in February, and they're going to help me put on this tournament. And we will be donating 100% of the proceeds to Nana's House Children's Home. So if anyone listening knows anyone in Florida or wants to make the trip, I would love to see you to do a social media thing together. It'll be a great time and a great opportunity to get together in the name of raising awareness and dollars for charity.
That's awesome. If you have a link for that, send it to me, and I will, when I release the episode, I'll put that out there too. And unfortunately, I'm actually I think I'm going to be in Orlando in January, so I'll miss it by like a month probably.
Oh, we are passing ships.
I know. But who knows? Maybe we can, if I make it down there, maybe we can meet in person. So a lot of my guests I haven't met in person yet. So it'd be fun to do that. Sure. But Morgan, I just want to thank you. You're so fun to talk to. You're such a good storyteller. You have an amazing story, and I can't wait to see you on the big screen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was such a really wonderful opportunity to get together and just talk martial arts. I don't get to do that very often, but it really brings out that side of us that I think we all, as martial artists, we just really enjoy visiting. So thank you for that opportunity, Brian. And
thank you for taking the time. Like I said, this I can talk martial arts forever, and this is just an easy way to do it. I get to record people and then let other people hear us talking about it. So I truly appreciate your time, and I can't wait to get the episode out.
Awesome. I can't wait either. I appreciate it, and thank you for your support.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.